Hello and welcome to today's episode of Health University, where the focus is on usually women's reproductive health and fertility. And today we're going to have a slightly different angle on this conversation, but a very interesting and important one, in that I'm happy to introduce Daniel Bayan, who is an open, intentional sperm donor who was himself donor conceived by an open donor with 23 known half siblings and a deep personal connection to the donor journey. Raised by a single mother who chose IVF in the early 2000s, Daniel now helps women and couples around the world start families with clarity, safety, and transparency at the heart of every donation. He is the founder of Sperm Donor Association, which link will be below in the show notes, a global platform built to connect quality donors and recipients in a trusted, supportive network. Daniel donates exclusively through artificial insemination, and it says AI or clinic, so ask you to expand upon that. He maintains excellent health, important for donation, a high sperm count, and a clean genetic and STI screenings. He believes in open donation, informed choice, and being available for future donor-conceived children who may want to know their roots. So, Daniel, welcome. If there's anything that I didn't include in your bio, please take this moment to elaborate so that people can get to know you well before we dive into our conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I'm very excited to talk about my work as a donor. Um, yeah, it might be interesting to mention that I've been doing it for about a year now as an open known donor traveling around the world. I've traveled the world 2 times so far. My main motivation at first was that I wanted to create a network of half siblings for my own children, but the more I got into it and the more I saw the impact having children has on the recipients and their families, the more motivated I am to just do more than just for my own family, my own future children, but also by founding the Sperm Donor Association, help women find their right donor match. So yeah, there's so much to talk about. It's super
Yes,
exciting.
yes. And so tell me how did Sperm Donor Association come about? I mean, obviously you yourself are, as you said, are a donor conceived human with 23 half siblings. Was it truly the impetus to grow your own family through donation?
So the reason I became a donor myself was because I have 23 half siblings all across California, some on the East Coast as well, and I thought it's such a gift to have this network of blood and to have these connections just given to you as you are born. So I thought, well, if I was given this, I could never explain to my children why I didn't pass this gift on to them, and I decided I wanted to become a sperm donor. Doing a lot of research and looking into fertility and the fertility issues of, I'd say, the last 50 years and what has happened with the male sperm count, everything from how DNA passes on, bad experiences, good experiences, everything basically is can be found in your DNA. I realized that I have to be the very best donor I can be if I want to do it correctly. So there's no, I'm going to do it halfway, I'm going to do 50% or part-time or mini job, something like that donor. For me, it was very important, and I found out pretty quickly that I had to put all my heart and all my effort in becoming the best donor I can possibly be. And pretty quickly, I gained quite some traction in the forums, the Facebook groups, the online platforms, on Instagram as well. The donor community is pretty nichey. It's about 100,000 children a year that are born by a donor conception or via a donor. But still, I was able to see and realize, well, the demand for healthy, open known donors out there is huge, and so huge that I have no, I could never be able to supply that demand. So I decided, hey, well, I have a few friends who are donors, and I think they could be maybe doing a bit better. They need some education. They are not donor conceived themselves, so I can give a really interesting perspective as a donor conceived donor to both recipients and to donors, which is why I decided, hey, the recipients that reach out to me that I cannot help, maybe travel reasons or financial reasons. Traveling as a donor is very expensive. The recipients, they cover all the travel expenses, they cover the travel time and the donation. And so that can be a couple thousand per cycle if your donor is on the other side of the planet, which, happens. Recipients book me for 20-hour or 25-hour flights. So I decided, well, we have this huge demand for healthy sperm. we have very few healthy donors out there, and recipients have a hard time making the right choices when it comes to that as well. Because, I've been super deep in the industry, and women that decide they want to have children, they usually don't have the time to think about it for years and to go deep into it for
Correct. Mhm.
right choices.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do was bring together these men, form a community and network with them, give a safe space to open, known, healthy, and ethical donors. Ethical to me means that you keep in mind the child at first, that the child is your main motivation and why you're doing this, and not yourself, your ego, or um, whatever you want to gain from it, right? May it be an income or just this ego of
Yeah.
having such a large family. Um, and then from there, recipients can now sign up on the website of the Sperm Donor Association if they're looking for a donor like myself. And we then refer and consult and try to find the right match for them, because there's so many things you can go wrong, so many mistakes you can make on that journey. And these are mistakes. And I think it's one of the most important decisions of your life, who you want to have a child with. That's a decision you're going to have to take care of at least 18 years, if not longer. If you get along well with your children, that's a decision that will affect you for the rest of your life. So that's why, I think the work I do is very impactful, and I'm very proud and happy that I do just that. And I wouldn't see anywhere else where I could leave a better impact for future generations and children.
Okay, thank you. Now, what defines an open donor? I mean, we know that, there was even this, this Netflix documentary about the man who fathered children around the world, and the concern that children may not know that they share DNA, that they may actually have the same donor coming together as a couple. So how do you address these kind of questions?
I define an open and ethical donor as someone who's 100% honest in what he does and what he says, which is what the donor, Jonathan Mayer, that you're referring to right now, who has the Netflix movie about him, did not do. He was not honest about the numbers of children he's helped conceive. He doesn't have any, he doesn't know if he has a 500 or 1,000 children, which is bonkers to me already. That's very unethical to me. Maybe he was lacking the perspective because he's not donor conceived. I'm lucky to be donor conceived myself, so I know that for some of my half siblings, having 30 or 40 half siblings would already be overwhelming for them. So there's some number in between 30 or 80 where it's a good time to stop and not be a donor anymore. Instead, help other donors become donors. At the end of the day, that's a choice to be made between the recipients and you, which again is something an open donor would do. He would involve his recipients and his children in these kind of choices. And more than that, an open donor is also open to whatever the child needs. I am personally not planning to co-parent, but I see myself as a backup godparent for situations where someone might need me, right? If the child needs my advice or connections to my, I have entrepreneurial friends from the past. If they're looking for a certain job or want to get into a certain industry, I'd love to help them out. If they want to meet other donor conceived people, I can connect them to the other donors and their children as well. So to me, an open donor is someone who's not involved directly and pushes into the family and tries to get involved. It's just someone who is open, who's trustworthy and transparent to having the child reach out to him as well.
Okay. So a recipient, someone who's seeking some donor sperm, would they know then how many donor conceived children you have already, your sperm has already helped to father? Would they have, is there an open forum in terms of where these potential children may actually live on the planet? I just don't know how transparent the whole thing is.
Exactly. So we at the Sperm Donor Association, our standards and expectations for our donors are much higher than any of the sperm banks have them out there. We really want to be not just good at being donors, we want to be the very best and the most open we can be about being donors.
Mhm.
And my situation when recipients that ask me how many children I've helped father so far, I always give them the transparent and open number, which is 10 by now. I've
Mhm.
helped 10 families, and it's 9 families, but there's also twins, so basically tw 10 children
Mhm.
um, are either born or on the way. And then more than that, I don't share the exact names or contact information
Mhm.
before a recipient is pregnant or successfully pregnant. I want to keep the families private, and I want to make sure that everyone gets to live their dream of whatever their family dream looks like
Mhm.
before that. So when recipients ask me for other recipients' information, I of course cannot forward any of that. If you look into my Instagram account, I'm probably the most open donor in this world right now because I basically share every day of my life and the work that I do and the supplements I take and the tests I do. So women can see a lot there, and but on there you won't find any of my other recipients or their children. You won't find any information on that. I do, however, tell recipients, and I can also tell you that when they want to know who or not who, but where the other recipients are, I tell them there's some in London, in Thailand, in Los Angeles, in Germany, in Austria. Um, and then they can like they know that, and for some it's great to have local half siblings. Some
Mhm.
parents wish for local half siblings because they might be a single mother by choice
Mhm.
and they want their child to experience what having siblings is like.
Mhm.
Others don't want too many siblings in one area, so it's definitely also some kind of community leadership that you have to go into as a donor to try and manage these different expectations and make sure that you align what you do with the expectations of the recipients. But once the recipients are successful, in my case, they get all the important contact information on the half uncles and the half aunts of their child, which are my half siblings, right? And then they get all the information on the half siblings, the date of birth, the name of the half siblings, contact information, in best case, two different contact information of the parent. But that's only once the child is born.
I see. Okay, very good. How many open donors do you have at the Sperm Donor Association presently?
So we are 25 open donors in the Sperm Donor Association worldwide, and of those, a few are retired and a few are over the threshold of age. So there's 15 that we refer recipients to, 15 where we say, okay, these have all the standardized tests, are, more open and more honest than any bank donor, and, fulfill our requirements of what we can give to recipients or tell recipients, hey, this is a good donor.
Okay, this is great. So you talked about the revenue, the price of open donor. I mean, is this something where a person would actually make a living as a sperm donor?
Oh, absolutely. I think that as a sperm donor, if you do it ethically, you don't want to charge more than you necessarily have to. I like to refer to the scene in Schindler's List, in the movie Schindler's List, where at the end of the movie he was very upset about the fact that he hadn't sold his car and his gold ring, and he could have saved more lives with the money that he made. He could have made with that unnecessary luxury.
Mm-hmm.
So I always remind myself that the cost for the recipient at the end of the day is money and energy that is supposed to be there for the child. And I believe an ethical donor will not take out more out of the system than he needs to be healthy and to grow a healthy family for the recipients. That's my personal opinion. Of course, as a donor, you can charge anywhere from $0 to 20,000 for a donation. There's some countries where having a US passport and a German passport, I have German, US, and Italian passports that can be passed on to the children. There's areas in the world where people offer a lot for that, but
Mm-hmm.
I decline because, again, this is money that I wouldn't really know what to do with it because I really, I foster my health and my family is my most important thing in my life, and my family, no one in my family needs any money or needs me to give them money. So, and health is expensive, but it's not super expensive. I
Mm-hmm.
probably spend around $2,000 or $3,000 every month on tests and supplements and organic food and everything,
Mm-hmm.
gym memberships and wellness. But overall, I think if you are a really good donor, it might take you a year, 2 or 3 years to get your health up to that point
Mm.
to make a living off of it. So I charge for the donations itself and then also for the travel time involved. I couldn't give you an exact price right now because that depends a lot on what other expenses I have. And it also depends on the demand. If my demand is super, super high, I might go up with the pricing and then use that money in ways that support my health and my family. So I might get more exclusive with my supplements, or I might get, even more tests done because those are always very interesting to see
Yeah.
for the mothers and the children. But yeah, you can definitely make a living off of it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Health University. We always strive to find ways to improve our support of you. Please connect with us for a fertility assessment call at the link below, healthuniversity.co, note not .com, /your fertile health call. We'd love to learn a bit about you and share our resources. Now, let's resume our conversation in today's episode. So within the Sperm Donor Association, you vet the members who are coming in and being open donors. Does the association itself, how shall I say, do they create like a list, a cost list, if you will, so that a recipient can kind of comb through that and say, okay, this is about what I can expect to spend should I choose donor A who lives nearby or prefer donor B who lives farther away.
No, we couldn't do that because
Okay.
that is, at the end of the day, an individual choice of the donor in whatever situation you might be in that time. There might be times when I'm working harder on projects like the Sperm Donor Association. I'm also a land investor, so if I have a lot of land projects going on, that might be a time when I don't want to travel. So it's
Mhm.
just a lot of individual
I
choices we.
see. So it is a networking association as opposed to an organization like a company that employs donors.
Exactly. We are nonprofit. We don't profit from the donors. We don't profit from the recipients. We do charge for connecting recipients to donors, but then use that money to be able to educate recipients more and be able to compete against banks, which in my opinion have like an old school kind of style of helping recipients conceive. And so there's no one in the association who like makes money with the other donors or something like that.
Got it.
Say it is a network, correct?
Okay, network. Okay. And then describe the person who says, I want to be an open donor. Like what would be some of the attributes that you would say this pretty much kind of sums up who this person is?
So an open donor has to be incredibly generous because you're putting yourself out there for a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things that you cannot foresee at all. I think that, people sometimes meet me at the park or calisthenics park or at the gym, and I talk to them about my work, and they want to make a choice in 10 minutes if they want to be a donor or not. But that's something you should really think through because it's not just jerking off into a cup and getting a couple $100s for that. It's much, much, much more than that. That's the smallest part of the job.
Mhm.
So you have to be generous, you have to be open, you have to be confident in showing yourself as well, because people and recipients will want to know, okay, who is this person? What are these genes made of? And with me, I try to live that on my Instagram account, where it's basically you get what you see, right? I share
Mhm.
posts of me working out. I share posts of the food I eat and everything I do. So you have to be generous, you have to be confident, you have to be open, you have to be healthy. You can't be much older than 40, somewhere around 40. That's a good time to retire as a donor and help other donors or help recipients connect to donors. So it doesn't mean you have to leave the donor industry behind you. It's just a certain time or age where you shouldn't be a donor yourself. No
Mhm.
drinking, no smoking. Be mentally strong. There's a lot that comes to it. So of all the
Mhm.
people that apply to the Sperm Donor Association, we only go into talking with about 3% of the donors, and then
Interesting.
of the 3% that we talk to, there's only very, very few that really, really make it into the Sperm Donor Association. At the end of the day, it's for me very personal because I was donor conceived, and I'm very happy and very lucky that my father turned out to become an open donor when I was 15, that he's healthy, that he's intelligent, that he is considered attractive. Those are traits that were good for me when I was growing up, and I was very lucky to grow up with those traits. Even though I didn't have a father at home, I had a healthy genetic background on his side as well,
Mhm.
not just on my mother's side, which
Mhm.
is just a good big reason for me to say, hey, we can only accept the very, very best of men. And then of the very, very, very best of men, only about 5% of men are interested or open to being an open and known donor.
Wow, this is so fascinating. And then what about the recipients? What do you find on in general? Like, what are they looking for? Or is it so unique to the individual or couple?
So about 60% of the recipients that reach out to me or the Sperm Donor Association are lesbian couples. 30% are single mother by choices, and then about 5% have a trans father involved, and another 5% have an infertile father involved. That's
Mhm.
the general, to give you a general idea
Mhm.
of the people that reach out to the Sperm Donor Association. It might be less people with fertility issues compared to the banks.
Mhm.
Um, I guess a lot of people that go to banks or go through clinics go that route, not so much because they can't find a donor, but also because they have fertility issues.
Mhm.
Also, a lot of that, especially with single mothers by choice, when they start trying to conceive at 30, 31, 32. And there's you can really tell that it is getting harder and harder compared to what it was like for my mother's generation to now to get pregnant. We've changed
Mhm.
so much about our environment. So it is
Absolutely.
it is not just it is a lot of emotional work as well, and talking to the recipients and setting the right expectations. People think that you just, try it once and are successful, which is not
Mhm.
the truth. I mean, it couldn't be further away from the truth. Sometimes, of course, you're lucky, but generally speaking, you have somewhere between 3% to 25%, depending on your age and your health, in success rate per cycle. So, the recipients, when they reach out to us or they're looking for a donor, there's a lot of education that no one has ever given them when it
Mhm.
comes to health of the DNA, health of the donor, the things you might want to conceive about a donor. I mean, you don't go to school and are taught how to choose a sperm donor, right? There's no such thing. You aren't even taught how to choose a partner in school.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of education that we then do when the recipients reach out to us and sign up for the Sperm Donor Association,
Mhm.
because what we often find is that recipients say, "Hey, I want a baby," and then we ask, "So what should the father be like?" And once we start going into that conversation, we realize it's not that simple.
Mhm.
This person does not just only want a baby. There's more to that. She wants someone who maybe has certain Christian values, or she wants someone who is super healthy, has a certain height or physical traits that come with it. She wants someone who she enjoys talking to, who seems like an interesting, intelligent person.
Mhm.
So it is an individual choice at the end of the day. You could say, generally speaking, recipients prefer attractive, intelligent, and healthy donors, that's for sure, because those are also traits that are passed on to the child.
Right.
So that's kind of the baseline. But
Mhm.
from there, it goes in many different directions, different ethnicities,
Yeah.
different preferences when it comes to hair color or personality traits. So as this baseline, we make sure we have this baseline, and then we try to offer different options in donors for the recipients. And we've also found it to be good to give the recipients a few really good options instead of a lot regular options that you can find online and in the Facebook groups, or as you just go out there,
Mhm.
bar hopping or going to a bar to find someone who might want to be a father. We found it to be really useful to say, hey, these are the two, three, or four options that we think would be the best match with what you have, what you have told us, and then the recipient can talk to those in person and decide, with whom she wants to move forward with.
Got it. So I heard you say that you make sure that people who are open donors within the Sperm Donor Association are getting STD testing. Are they getting any other kind of testing? Are they doing any kind of like genetic testing to rule out genetic diseases? Are they doing any mental health assessments to rule out mental health issues?
Yeah, all our donors have been DNA tested and have to
Mhm.
go through a therapist who approves that he has no mental health issues. All the baseline tests that the banks require from our
Mhm.
donors, we expect the same, and then
Okay.
expect more on top of that. So,
Okay.
so we look at the banks for some advice when it comes to that and see how they work those
Okay.
things.
And then do you have any criteria for the recipients, where you would say if this person is a smoker or a drinker, that you would say you'll need to stop that before we offer our open donation?
Yes, that's similar. Similar both ways, basically. So we set a baseline also for the donors inside of the Sperm Donor Association. We also create value for the donors. We have a pre-screening, a conversation with the recipient to make sure that she seems mentally healthy, seems mentally fit. I just talked to a donor the other day, Ari Nagel, actually. He's part of the retired donors. We w wouldn't refer him to recipients. He also has a very high number of donations. He has donated 177 times, which is overwhelming to me as a donor
Mm,
person. Um, but he had one recipient that was in a great and perfect relationship, in a great situation with a husband, and the husband was supportive, and he donated to them. And the husband and her then divorced, and now she wants to return the child, you know. So there's situations where people are in great situations, but there's also still a risk. So as a donor, you have to understand that in these cases, and with him it was, 0.5% of all the children he's donated to. This has happened once, and he was sued 5 times, which is also something we protect our donors from. We have a legal intern, which is actually my half sister, who knows how the laws work in different states and what states you can donate in as an open and known donor, and what states you have to be careful. You might have to cross state lines to do a donation.
mhm,
Um, there. So there's a lot when it comes to that. But to get back to your question, um, we make sure that the recipients we work with are healthy physically, emotionally, and mentally, right? With many things, for example, for the financial
mhm.
health, we can only ask the recipient. We cannot look into her bank statements, and we won't go home and see if she goes to the gym every other day.
Right.
That's not what we're going to do. If we see red flags, if we see obesity, if we see smoking or drinking, if we do research on the recipient or she texts us through her account, Instagram, Facebook account, and we see, oh, well, there's obvious problems here that we cannot put our donors at that kind of risk.
Mhm.
Um,
So you
then
have declined recipient applications if they don't meet criteria that helps you assure you're bringing healthy babies into the world.
we do decline. We do
Mhm.
decline recipients just because that's what our donors expect as well. When they go
Mhm.
into this conversation and we give out personal information to the recipients, then we have to make sure that we don't, refer someone who's smoking or drinking. I
Mhm.
personally, individually, everyone might has different preferences as well. We have donors that are super selective. We have donors that are not so selective. We have donors that are open to helping people that have, might have some financial problems. Others say, if
Mhm.
she can't afford a $2,000 cycle or donation or contract, then I cannot help her have a child. That's the baseline for some other donors. Me personally, I have to decline about 85% of the recipients that reach out to me. Not through the Sperm Donor Associations. A lot of recipients reach out to me through my Instagram and my Facebook
Mhm.
account.
Mhm.
But I do that based on red flags that I see. And that can also be in the communication, the way you communicate to someone who's trying to help you grow your family. If there's disrespect in the communication, it's a personal question to me, and it's part of my extended family choices that I make in some way. So if I see someone, that doesn't have the basic respect in communicating or is not able to, introduce themselves well or say thank you when I help them and when I do research for them or stuff like that, then that's red flags too. And at the
Got
end of it, it's an individual choice.
Yeah. You mentioned about that story that somebody wanted to give a baby back to the donor. I mean, I imagine there are legalities that are in place where I's are dotted and T's are crossed to know whose baby this is. Is that correct?
Well, in case of the donors inside of the Sperm Donor Association, yes, we have a legal intern who can help donors and recipients figure out the right contracts. Ari Nagel, he just joined the Sperm Donor Association as a retired donor with some experience, so he can like talk about what he learned and the mistake he's made on the way. This is one
Uh-huh.
mistake he's made on the way, is not doing all the legal work he could have done. He is saying that, well, sometimes you don't know, or sometimes you can't plan ahead like that, which is true, but you can, even if you can't delete risks, you can mitigate them by going through a lawyer and doing all that work. Me personally, I've, seen so many different cases that I decided I don't want any assets under my name. If I have a business or work on a business, I don't want it under my name. I don't want that business to be in a country where people can go after the money. I'm a traveling donor, so I'm not based in the US. I travel a lot. I'm only in the US for about a month a year. So the rest of the time I travel around, so I don't have to like have my taxes paid in the US. People might think, oh, that's crazy, that's wild. But that's actually what a lot of young Europeans are doing because the taxes are so high in Europe. They just leave Europe.
Okay.
Um, so for me, I also tell recipients, hey, I have multiple passports, no assets under my name. If there's ever a situation where you need me, need my support, may even be financially, talk to me like a human being, talk to me like a friend. We might be able to find a solution. I'm also open to people that are super, super healthy and want someone to help them as a co-parent. I would also be open to co-parent as a distant father or a distant kind of uncle figure or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do mention or make sure that everyone involved understands they cannot destroy my life or go after me
Yeah.
or break me financially. So that's something I tell new donors as well, especially remote working donors that because a lot of traveling donors, they have a remote job. They're like editors or videographers and accountants or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell them if you have the opportunity or if you incorporate a company, don't tell your recipients where.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it's in a country where they cannot sue you, and try to have multiple passports, which is also something you can do as a donor. There's countries where, as a biological father, you can retrieve additional passports without it being illegal. It's totally legal to do
Mm-hmm.
it in countries like Brazil or Australia. There's, I think, about 15 countries where you can become a citizen by having a child there, and then you can also pass these on to your children, which I think is something a really, really good donor would do. He would
Mm-hmm.
try and set up his future children, biological children, for the most opportunities and the highest success, which, for example, is why I pass on my passports as well.
Okay, very interesting. Well, Daniel, I could talk with you forever. I want to be respectful of your time and the listening and viewing audience's time. As we wrap up here, are there any, salient points or messages that you want to give to the audience at this time?
Well, I can just say that um, life is already very overwhelming in many ways.
Yeah.
But, and I don't want to sound overwhelming, choosing who the biological father of your child is the biggest choice. I think one of the biggest choices of your life. It's probably just as big as who you decide to parent that child with, or who you spend the rest of your life with, because the genes of the father are going to be in the child for all of your life and for the rest of the child's life. So it's definitely a very, very important and big decision to make, and it's if you have the time, take the time. If you don't have the time, that's also where the Sperm Donor Association is there to help to find you someone who is a healthy biological father.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm really, really grateful to have had this conversation and to get the word out that there is an alternative to sperm bank or to, as you say, meeting someone in the bar and hoping that that would work out. That's probably the least recommended way to have a baby, to bring a healthy, know that you're bringing a healthy baby into the world. So thank you for your time. All of the references, your Instagram links and the Sperm Donor Association links will be in the show notes, listeners. So if this is of interest to you or someone you know and love, then please make sure that you pass this along because it's a really valuable resource that I think that Daniel has created. And I love that it's created really out of your own roots, literally. Yeah.
If
So
anyone knows someone who would make a great open and own donor, there's very few options out there, but if you know someone who you think would match what we talked about, then please forward that someone to the Sperm Donor Association.
beautiful. Okay. We'll make sure that that gets added to the show notes as well. So thank you for your time. Viewers, thank you for your time. And as we end every episode of Health University, class dismissed. Hey, thanks for joining us today here at Health University. If you want more episodes like this at Health University, you can find them wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode. If you have any thoughts or questions, please drop a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you at our next episode of Health University. But for now, class dismissed.